Imperial Rome is known as one of the largest empires of the ancient world. Without a doubt, ancient Roman society was a civilization exceptionally developed for its time. A remarkable number of advancements in warfare, government, law, politics, engineering, and architecture were made during this era, and we attribute much of today's civil systems and practices to these important developments. The extraordinary progress of the Romans was due in large part to the adaptability of the Roman language Latin, their alphabet, and their writing system. The style of this Roman writing system is of particular interest. This presentation will take a closer look at the ancient Roman letter form, notably its most formal style, Roman capitalis, also called Roman capital or monumental or inscriptional capitals. Our focus will fall mostly on the last 2 centuries BC, when the Roman alphabet had become well established, through the first 2 centuries AD, when the Roman capital style began to morph into a more uncial style. This presentation will cover how the Roman alphabet came to be and how it came to be so influential. We will take a detailed look at the form and construction of the Roman capitals and visit the Trajan column in order to understand its significance in relation to this historically important letter form. Nautical advancements throughout the last 1,000 years BC gave way to more and more exploration of the land that encompassed the Mediterranean Sea. The Mediterranean Sea was key to the expansion of culture, and important trade routes were established. It was a turbulent time as people fought for land, colonization, and valuable goods. As first a humble agricultural community, Rome benefited from being located between 2 very prominent societies. Rome's northern Italian neighbors, the Etruscans, had an abundance of natural resources and were rich in art, religion, and culture. To the south included the particularly wealthy and sophisticated Greek settlements. It was roughly around the 2nd century BC when Rome had overpowered their influential neighbors and began to expand their own control to eventually dominate Western Europe. Typographic history explains that the Roman alphabet was not created autonomously, but was adapted from the alphabet of the Etruscans, who developed their alphabet from the Greeks, which was mostly borrowed from the Phoenicians. Though the languages between these contributors were different from each other, the letters were adaptable enough to be translated and assimilated over time. By 100 AD, the resulting Roman alphabet consisted of 23 letters that we know as our alphabet today. The 3 missing letters, J, U, and W, were not present until 1,000 or more years later. The Roman alphabet established a writing system that was uncomplicated for transcribing speech and was generally easy to learn and use. As Romans continued their conquest and expanded their rule, the adaptability of their language helped fortify their growth. As Romans continued their vast expansion, they erected epic monuments and arches marking the captured territories. The Roman capital letter form was primarily reserved for inscriptions on these monuments, proving to pair well with the commemorative architecture. Like its name suggests, Roman capitals appeared only as capitals, having no lowercase variations or ligatures, and appeared in equal height. The capital inscriptions commanded respect and exemplified elegance, supporting the heroic messaging found carved into the long-standing stone structures. Understandably, inscriptions of this grand scale required careful planning before being permanently chiseled into place. Because Roman capitals were based on a system of squares and circles, space and proportions could be accurately calculated. Even the width of the principal stroke of a letter was specified to measure 1/10 of its total height, but the precision and regularity accounted for only a part of its makeup. The Roman capital also maintained its elegance with graceful curves, small apertures, and strokes that were purposefully varied between thick and thin. Very likely the most notable typographic contribution of the Roman capital was the introduction of the serif. This creation is credited to the tools the Roman craftsmen used to create the Roman capital inscriptions. The special finishing touch of the serif bestowed a detail of formality that we continue to associate with serif typefaces today. Of all the monuments that are inscribed with Roman capitals, the most widely regarded and celebrated example of this writing style is found on Trajan's Column in Rome. Completed in 113 AD for Emperor Trajan, the tower stands almost 100 feet tall and is still intact nearly 2,000 years after it was built. The inscription on the base of the column epitomizes the Roman capital letter form. Here it is admired for mechanical perfection, equally matched by artistic beauty. Serving as the ideal model of the Roman alphabet, it is believed that the Trajan Roman capitals were first written by either a double-pointed writing instrument or a wide, flat tool that could create varied but controlled widths depending on the path of the stroke. When the stone carver did his part to make the form permanent, the serifs enabled him to tidy the imperfect edges, providing handsome finishing touches that allow the letters to live so purposefully and harmoniously next to each other. The carved letters were then painted in order to appear closer to the handwritten form, but over the years the paint has disappeared, leaving the beautiful shadows created by the chisel. Of course, Roman writing between the last two and first 2 centuries was not limited to inscriptions on large monuments. The Roman square capitals, also called capitalis quadrata, were used for manuscripts and other important formal documents. Capitalis rustica, also called rustic capitals, was narrower and more relaxed in execution and was used for writings of less importance. In the later years of Imperial Rome, when Christianity came into focus, the need to transcribe biblical writings required a more practical and speedier solution to the carefully crafted Roman capitals, and over time, the Roman writing style became more forgiving and more casual. Eventually, this new uncial style that introduced lowercase letters for speed of writing became the chosen Roman script. But the Roman letter form was not lost. Hundreds of years later, with the Renaissance, came the humanist movement that revived interest in the perspectives of ancient Rome. Printing advancements invited a new look to replace the then popular handwritten style, and Roman capitals were the inspiration. Today, the Roman-inspired letter form is alive and well. Times New Roman, designed by Stanley Morrison in 1929 for the British newspaper Times of London, is arguably the most widely used typeface of all time. More recently, Carol Twombly designed the Roman typeface aptly named Trajan, and for much of the 1990s it was often found in movie posters and book covers. Through the years, the Roman capital-inspired letter form has been considered classic, formal, and very readable. Roman typefaces still live on architectural structures and are often associated with higher education, law, and government. There is no way to tell for sure what is in store for this Roman category of serif typefaces, but it is very likely that the first Latin letter form created has the potential to stand the test of time, like many of the monuments on which it was originally inscribed.